Okay, I'm very, very pleased to be able to say this. Please welcome to the stage, Fogerty!
Hi, everybody. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you for coming on short notice.
Oh, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How you doing?
Pretty good, actually. Thank you.
I mean, where do we start? Actually, I know where I wanted to start, because we're in London. Can you remember your first trip to the UK, to England?
Oh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
1970.
Right?
Yeah.
And what do you remember from that trip?
The Beatles broke up. Yeah, we had come over and we were going to play Albert Hall, so we were in London. And while I was in a hotel room somewhere doing an interview, my brother Tom came in and said, "The Beatles just broke up." And we all kind of looked at each other like, that was like the world splitting in half or something. Terrible. But anyway, that's what I remember.
And those Royal Albert Hall shows, pretty good shows, pretty good gigs, right? The thing is, we've always loved your work here in England. We've always loved your work. Why do you think that is? Because maybe your songs are kind of American, but they speak to the British as well, I think. They speak to everyone. Why do you think that is?
I really, you're asking me, but I don't really know. I know that I tried to write songs I liked, okay? And so, for some point in time anyway, it seemed like what I liked overlapped with what other people liked. So that was a good thing. I think the songs were pretty intense. I tried to edit myself and compress the records down so that there was not a lot of fluff in there, But other than that, I just tried to follow what I, in my own view, what I thought a good song was. That's the best I can answer. Thank you.
I should say happy birthday as well, because you celebrated your
Oh
birthday.
yes, I'm 80 years old. Thank you very much. Hopefully most of us get applauded for doing something other than just sticking around a long time.
How did you celebrate? What did you do?
Oh, this was really fun. I decided to play a show on my birthday at the Beacon Theater in New York City. And that was really nice. Of course, my family was with me. Then a lot of folks came that I had known over the years. It was medium. It wasn't a gigantic blowout, but it wasn't an intimate setting either. Luckily, I didn't get a cake with 80 candles on it, so I didn't have to do that.
So let's talk a bit about your career. Like, you've had fame and adulation and record sales, but you've talked about how it's really about the song. The song is the most important thing. Can you remember the first song you wrote when you were like, okay, this is good, I've got it, I've captured something?
Well, the first time that actually resonated and I did that was Proud Mary.
Right.
And thank you. I mean, I started writing, well, I'll go way back. My mom had sat me down when I was 3 years old. 3? Yep. Wow. She had obviously noticed I was musical. I was dancing around in my diapers in church, bringing down the house, you know. And Ham and me also knew that my parents were embarrassed that I was dancing. And, you know, they were trying to be solemn. And I'm sitting there doing a little soft shoe or something and kind of making a little to myself. And then adults started to notice, and I looked up in my mind, I guess, oh, I have an audience, you know. And my parents were very embarrassed, but the more they shushed me, the more the other people seemed to get a kick out of it, and I just let it roll. So when I was 3, my mom sat me down. She gave me a little yellow record, a children's record, really. I mean, this is a long time ago. And on one side was the song "Oh Susanna," the other side was "Camptown Races," doo-da, doo-da, you know, that one. And she played both sides to me, and I don't know that I even knew the songs before this moment. And then she tells me, "Johnny, I want you to know that Stephen Foster is the songwriter. He wrote both of these songs." Okay, Mom, you know. I'm not sure. I know I enjoyed the music. It was certainly a moment with my mother, and she was giving me something to own, so that would have been one of my very first possessions, you might say. But over the years, I've just been dumbfounded by that moment. And I mean, I really had wished I asked my mom what she was thinking. Why did she do that? Because a little kid, you know, kids pick up songs and little ditties and cute things, right? Very early, almost before they can walk, certainly. And she was telling me about songwriting. And a particular fella, Stephen Foster, who wrote very Americana kinds of songs, it made me pay attention the rest of my life. And I dare say, I think a lot of his music has, well, I've thought about it. I think it's been influential and been in my music.
Yeah. And music always brought you joy. It was always something in your heart.
That music was, it made me feel really good. A little bit later, as I became a teenager, music was my friend, my solace, you know, that everything else could be a mess, but in life, but music was always there to guide me. So so I started writing songs pretty young. The first one officially I remember was a song called Wash Day Blues.
Wash Day Blues.
Yep, I was 8 years old. I was already listening to the Rhythm and Blues channel because I had older brothers. And they were this is pre-rock and roll, probably about 1953. I'm 8 years old. I was in the morning, I was getting ready to go to school, and a commercial came on this radio station, and I remember the man said, "Do you have the Wash Day Blues?" And I'm sure he was selling some kind of soap. And it just stuck in my head. So all the way to school, I was writing this. I mean, I don't know what compelled me, but it was just natural to go from Wash Day Blues, oh, I'll write a song about it. I don't know where that came from, but all the way to school, I'm writing these different lines about Wash Day Blues, and of course, the music was dun 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 dun. Oh, I got the Wash Day Blues. Dun 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 dun. You know, it's a Muddy Waters, Willie Dixon lick from those times.
And then rock and roll hit, right? What happened when you first heard rock and roll? Did a light go on?
Yeah, well, I loved rhythm and blues, and then there started to be this more peppy kind of a thing. And people like Fats Domino, Little Richard, Elvis Presley, and they were being played on the rhythm and blues station before there was actually a name. I don't know if anybody was saying rock and roll yet. I would have been 8, 9, 10 years old. But about when I was 10 and Elvis got on television, somehow there was some sort of shift that I didn't really understand, other than it seemed younger, or it seemed more at me.
Right.
And I didn't really analyze it so much, but I just, suddenly there was a whole crop of young people, very young people, making music, and they began to call that stuff rock and roll.
So, like, I think the hardest thing for any songwriter is to be honest, is to write how they really feel. And that doesn't come easy, but like, it's something that you've managed to tap into. I mean, who did you look up to? Who else did you think, like, they're real? The work they're making makes me feel a certain way. I can believe them. Who are the people you looked up to?
Well, you said something else that was very important. You said to be honest.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing when you're a songwriter. You've got to be brutally honest. And you're young, and how can I say, you're not quite writing at the level of Lennon and McCartney, you know, but you're writing songs, and even at that time, you sort of start to realize there's good and then there's bad or silly, and you're trying to improve yourself, I guess is the best way to say it. And you realize hopefully, you realize when you've got a stinker on your hands, and you either gotta just throw it away or start over, or maybe a little of both.
And you're always quite single-minded. You were quite ambitious in where you wanted to be as a musician. You knew that you had your sights set upon a career in music. This was going to be
again, when I was about 10 years old, my parents were still together, I guess. Boy, it all got really murky right around that time. But anyway, we were up in Northern California, and I was in this general store, and my dad was buying some fishing stuff. And suddenly I heard this thing in the air. It turned out there's a jukebox in this general store, a really unusual thing. Oh my goodness, what is that? And I ran over to the jukebox, and I could see the record, and I looked at, oh, it was My Baby Left Me by Elvis Presley. Which, I guess, I'm a lot older than you guys. It was curious to me, because he was a brand new guy, and this was something I'd never heard. Well, it turned out it was the other side of his second big single, that being I Want You, I Need You, I Love You, and which was, you know, a ballad, you might say. But this music was really primitive, and it was full of magical guitar by Scotty Moore. And I sat there just mesmerized by the sound of it. I'm 10. And I made the decision. I said, I don't know what that is, but that's what I want to do.
That's for me.
And that was it. Yeah, it was really, I was gone.
I think the influences that you brought into your music, I find this really interesting, because if you look at Creedence, their work, there's like, it's rock and roll, but it's country, but it's soul, but it's kind of R&B, and it's rhythm and blues. It's kind of all these things.
Yeah.
Did you ever have people going like, you can't do that? You're not supposed to mix these things.
Very lucky thing, it was also a curse, but it was lucky. I was on a very small label, a jazz label, Fantasy Records. By the way, I had worked as a shipping clerk in the warehouse, the one and only shipping clerk, for a certain amount of time, around the time I was 19 and 20 years old. So I knew how many records they didn't ship, because I was the guy who was packing it up. You know, these were all those old see-through red and yellow and blue records by Cal Tjader and Mongo Santa Maria. I mean, it was lovely music, but it was jazz to a very limited audience. Anyhow, the fact that I was on a tiny label kind of meant once this thing started rolling, I could just do what I wanted to do, because they didn't really have anybody there who knew what it was that I should do. Now, I'll go back a little bit. At one point, that label named our band we had been called the Blue Velvets. I named that band in junior high, right? The same fellows that eventually became Creedence, but we were the Blue Velvets when we started there on Fantasy in 1964. They renamed us the Gollywogs. And so, not knowing anything about the history of that word and all of that, I did know that it sounded silly and, like pollywogs, and people kind of didn't take us seriously, but since that was our only option, we made a few singles, probably 6 or 7, something like that. But once things got really rolling, there was really no one who understood rock and roll, and I'd grown up in it. It was the most important thing in the universe to me, and I just kind of was able to, this is what I'm doing, so I went.
I mean, I was looking at your output at that time, so you were writing fast, man.
Yeah.
Like, debut album, 68, 3 albums in 69, 3 albums, and all really good records. 2 in 1970, including Cosmos Factory, my favourite. I mean, how did you work that quickly, with that high quality control?
Well, remember, I'd been wanting to be a rock and roller my whole life, and I'd seen other people have careers. Certainly, you watched Elvis, and then the Beatles came along, and I mean, I dare say there'll probably never be anything like what the Beatles were in their time, with so many, they used to call them double-sided hits and all that. So much great music, right? And so that was certainly an inspiration. But here I was at the end of 1968, my little band, who at the beginning of that year I had just come up with the name Creedence Clearwater Revival, and that name was far better than we were. It was that first touch of getting to the big time, and the name, kind of outreached our own level of musicianship at the time. And shortly after that, recorded my arrangement of Susie Q, on which I really learned a lot of things, and kind of also had the courage to stop trying to write the song and just pick something I already know is good and arrange it, spend all my energy that way. And also with the idea of making it fit into what was going on in San Francisco. You may not know that Susie Q was actually released just as a tape at first. Basically, the whole process of trying to make a record and then have Fantasy try to distribute it, in the Gollywogs, and it was all kind of disappointing. So there was a local station in San Francisco, FM. We now know it's KMPX. It was the first underground station, right? And they were playing a lot of different things, and sometimes they played just a tape from a band. And so I said, look, let's make a tape, and we'll trick it out and make it as much like that realm as possible. And it worked. And eventually that led to being a single being released, which crossed over on the Top 40 radio, and our first album. Anyway, by the end of that year, though, I kind of took stock and could see, well, we've had one hit. That means I'm a one-hit wonder. And, we all know what that means, and I certainly didn't want all that effort to end up being a one-hit wonder. So I decided I'm gonna, we didn't have a manager, we didn't have a publicist, we were certainly not on a big label, and it was a jazz label to boot. So I've got to just do it with music. And I determined I would have to write as much good music as I could and get it into my band and have that be our sound, our thing, and release as much music as possible. And to me it seemed really doable. Now I say it sounds scary, but it seemed like it was life and death. It was the only option. The only way I was really going to not be a one-hit wonder was to just somehow evolve. And I remember saying to myself, do it now. You have to do it now. You know, don't think about it, you know, next year or 3 years from now, I'm going to write my great American novel or something, right? It's right now, it's the time. And somehow squeezed myself into, you know, creating all those songs.
Some pretty amazing songs, right?
You understand, I do want to say, I mean, I didn't work like from 10 in the morning until 1. And okay, that's it, I'll go off sailing now or something. I was doing this all day long and all night.
Every day?
Yeah, and I stayed up nights from, maybe I'd have dinner and then start around 7, 8 o'clock and go until about 4 in the morning. I mean, I was manic, obviously. You know, it's like nowadays you hear about people in startup companies, you know, guys get out of college, they all drink a bunch of Red Bull and they come up with Google or something, you know.
I mean, do you feel comfortable when people say like, you are one of the great American songwriters? Do you feel comfortable with all the kind of accolades?
There's kind of two answers to that.
Okay.
And sometimes, you know, I'll be the old grandpa in the chair with a pipe and I go, wow, that's been a nice career, you know. And then other times, it takes me by surprise and I actually wonder that I'm the guy that did that.
Really?
You know, it just seems surprising. Like Proud Mary. And I'm not trying to be cute here or anything, it's just, it turned out so nice. It just seems like it was there all the time, like old dirt or something, you know?
Because this is it. Some of your songwriting, it feels so simple.
Oh,
But it's not. I think the skill is to make something that sounds like you've known it your whole life. I think that's part of the skill.
I think that's actually the whole trick, right? Or the illusion. In the first hand, I would say it is really, really simple. You know, I know a bit of music theory, but certainly in those days, I'd kind of grown up, put it this way, I took some playing music lessons, like folk guitar lessons, but I really didn't take much music theory with the notes and all that. I did that when I was about in the 4th grade, and I don't know, it was a chore to me. I didn't like that. So I was lazy and didn't learn to read music and all that sort of thing. And also I kind of had a sense in, especially rock and roll, which I love, and that was always simple, and it sort of, what's the word? You didn't want to have a whole lot of other junk in it. You wanted it, you know, because then it wouldn't be cool, right? And so rock and roll had its kind of its own ethic. In fact, there used to be moments, every kid knows this, every young person, you hear music or you hear about a band or a singer, it could be at any time, but certainly I'm talking about in those days. And then you kind of find out, well, they really, with me, or are they a bunch of old guys pretending to make a rock and roll record? Because that would happen occasionally. And then you go, oh, no, right? You'd be off of it right away because they were kind of pretending and maybe slumming a bit to do something, you know.
Yeah.
So I tried to be simple, but you quickly learn that there's the right simple. It doesn't just mean take some boring chord and put it with another simple, boring chord. There's a way to do it where it seems like Beethoven. You know, it's interesting.
I want to touch upon the battle you've had to reclaim ownership of your songs. Because I was reading and I read a line that put it really simply, it just said, John hadn't owned the rights to his music for his entire career. And I was like, I can't understand how tough that must have been. And there's a long story, there's a happy ending, but like, was there a point when you nearly gave up? You were like, I this legal battle is too much, I'm never going to own these songs again? Was there a point where it got too much?
No.
Good.
Something close to that, but in a different way. There was a time when I felt this is so oppressive, this situation where you don't own their songs, and this guy Saul Zaentz who owned Fantasy Records. Is Saul here tonight?
He would make it out.
I don't owe you any more songs. Get out of here. And so, obviously I'd signed, and all of us in the band had signed a contract to make records. And within that contract was also the language that said that if any of us write songs, he will own them. So basically the contract meant that unwritten, as of now, unwritten songs will be owned by this other person. And that's how it came to be. So I never owned ever Proud Mary. I didn't have it, and then somehow he tricked me out of it. He owned it from the get-go before it even was a song. At some point in my life, way back then, what I call the dark days, I kind of made the decision that if I go on and just play into his hands, which was to just go out and try and have a career pretending that I'm enjoying the situation and singing my well-known song to people, I said, I'm going to drink myself to death. I'm going to be so depressed because it's not right, and I know that, and it's not me to just like go along, with the flow. It was just an unsatisfactory situation. So what I did do purposely is I kind of circled the wagons of my heart, of my emotional being, and said, I've got to protect this thing I have, and not be out there destroying myself and hating every moment of it because it's a fake act, That's why you didn't hear from me for quite some time.
But you, with help from your wife especially, you won the songs back.
Yes.
This is a congratulations. Tell me about the day that you found out you'd got them back, or the phone call, or the moment when you were like, we've done it. Tell me about that moment.
Well, first of all, I have to tell you that I was trying to figure out a way to get my songs back. I even met with Saul Zaentz, having Bill Graham be the mediator, but it ended up that Saul just lied to everybody again. And they say a leopard doesn't change its spots, and this is what happened there. I actually got invested emotionally in thinking that this process was going to lead to me getting the ownership of my song, but he was just playing with me. It's just it went on for years, and I can't tell you the whole reel, it's too long of a story, but I was listening to somebody on the radio complain about some man that wouldn't commit and marry her. In fact, he kept telling her he wasn't going to marry her, but she wouldn't hear it. And I'm out jogging, and I'm listening on my headphones. And the guy on the radio keeps telling her, well, he's telling you he won't marry you. I want him to marry me, right? And I realized that that's what's going on. I want to own these songs so bad, I listened or didn't hear that, it's Saul Zaentz I'm talking about here. He's going to cheat you, eventually, in my run, I understood it profoundly and started laughing so hard I couldn't run anymore, and I fell down on the ground. But at that moment, I stopped trying so hard to get my songs back because it just was never ever going to be, right? At some point, Julie took over, and her, I'm just profoundly thankful that I met that beautiful young woman.
Round of applause, Julie.
happen with love, and this is all the right stuff, by the way. Julie could tell that there was just something missing, and the whole, almost the way you just said it, it was wrong that I didn't own my songs. So she started working on it, you know, and I didn't hear her talk on the phone to different people. Now remember, all of that I've been through, and I kind of figured life's tough, whatever, move on, you know. But she was, well, she's a force of nature for one. And she managed to align the stars, is all I can say, kind of rearrange the universe. And this thing, and many people told her it's never going to happen. They won't sell the songs. This is just completely out of the realm of reality, right? And she refused to accept it. That was that. And she's, I don't know, she's amazing that way. And kept calling. You girls out there know this one. Behind every man, there's a great woman. It's the absolute truth. She was able to take on all that bad energy and somehow manifest it to where she was talking to people, I mean, that she didn't know before, but would somehow get ingratiated and get, you know, become friends and line other friends up. And eventually, one day, the right person landed at the record company that owned my songs. And he heard this. He felt it. He understood it. You know, his name is Bob Valentine, and he's a hero in my life, actually. But, you know, I have to say I'm dumbfounded how Julie ever managed to rematerialize the universe in the way she did. And here I am owning my songs. Globally, everywhere. Yeah.
And now we have this, which is, I guess this is like a celebration, isn't it?
Yes.
Really? When did the idea first come to kind of re-tackle these songs and do them again?
Say that again.
When did the idea first come? Was it just like, I have to, this is a chance now to go back to these songs?
Well, we're really kind of in celebration mode. We really celebrated when I got the publishing back for the songs from that era, the Creedence era. And that just changed my whole life, my world. And how I mean that is, you know, I'd be, in days gone by, I'd be talking to somebody, an interview or whatever, and they'd say something very nice about the songs, you know, and there'd always be that little shadow, but I don't own them. You know? And it's like, oh, and I mean, look, I'm proud of these songs I wrote. And I'm so happy that you guys still sing these songs and enjoy this music. I mean, think about it. It's the most wonderful thing. I wrote these songs when I was 22 years old. That's 55 and more years ago. And people like still come and sit here and listen to me tell old stories or play my guitar or whatever. It's just an amazing thing that to have happened to a kid that had a paper out in the 5th grade because he wanted to buy a guitar. Yeah. So I think a lot of that energy from now owning the songs and an idea really that Julie had. She told me one day, she said, I have this vision. It's full of joy. You're going to re-record those songs. And I could make no sense out of that. I wasn't ready to hear that. This might have been 8, 10 years ago, you know, whatever that is. I don't know, why would I want to do that? They're pretty good, though, you know, the whole records. They're fine. Why would I want to re-record them? And she said, well, she just had this sense that was full of joy. It was a big deal, right? Now, I was pretty happy already. I met Julie, who is the most wonderful person in the entire world to me, most beautiful girl I ever saw. And we got married and made this wonderful family, our kids, and we're a really, close little nest, I would say. And I'm happy as a clam with that. I just think that's my happiness, right? And so I really had no right to complain about anything else, because I've always told her from the day I met her, really, that, you know what, it's all worth it. All the crap, the 20 years of really bad stuff is worth it for one day with you. And I really mean that. Well, because that's the real stuff, right? I think in a sense what I was trying to say is, you've heard about all that, bad business, but I'm a very lucky man to have my soulmate, to have my partner in life and this wonderful family. So, I think I already got the golden ticket. I don't have a right to complain, actually. But she told me this tale. Anyway, after getting my songs back, the idea of re-recording kind of made more sense. Especially, you'll find out, but anyway, it made more sense as I looked at the fact that I was going to turn 80 years old pretty soon. Somehow, and she even said it, she said, John, you're going to be 80, you got to do whatever you want. And I think within reason, I can't become a criminal or some sort of bad person, but you notice that older people kind of just have that swagger that, yeah, all right, football. They're just going to do what they're going to do because they've gotten a lot of experience, I guess. Lord knows I have. Anyway, and so I started working on recording what became Legacy. By the way, Julie named this Legacy, and it's perfect. And at first blush, I don't know, it was okay. I had done a version of Proud Mary, and it was, but inside I knew, well, that's not good enough. I mean, you've got this thing over here that's really great. That's not good enough. And my sense of pride or competition or whatever that is, competitiveness, knowing how it ought to be, how good it ought to be, that's when that kicked in, that's when everything changed. And I was, at that point, was in it with both feet. Here's where all the joy part comes. I was recording these songs with my two boys who are in my band, Shane and Tyler. And basically it was also a family affair. Julie was certainly looking over the whole process. My other kids would show up at the studio and see, how's it going? Because they were interested and very supportive. It was indeed a family effort, right? And I think Julie must have known all along that at some point John's going to kick in. He'll become John, right? And that is what happened. And I got to go through that process right in front of my kids who are musicians and got to show them, what it's like to when you have something that's pretty good, but it's not good enough. And then taking that to be in the very best you can imagine, the best that's going to be coming out of me. And they got to see that takes a lot of extra effort. The first easy part is like 2%. And then that last hard part that's about this big, that's going to take 90% of the effort. I mean, it's backwards, but that's how it works. And the other thing that was absolutely wonderful, I'm the master, right? The dad, the guy that started that business, you might say. And I got to put a sign up under my name, John Fogerty, musician, and this, outside our little make-believe shop, and it says John Fogerty and Sons musician. It's just the greatest thing.
So we have Glastonbury coming up. I saw you play Glastonbury in 2007. It was a good show. You kind of, something about that place and you kind of locked together, didn't it?
Well, it was raining like a son of a gun. It really, I guess you guys all know this, but I was a newbie that first time, and I noticed a bunch of people walking around with these rubber boots on.
Yeah.
And it turned out that they were veterans. It rained a lot, and Glastonbury's down in a bowl, and so all that mud and rain is kind of oozing down to the bottom where we are. And so I just remember a lot of mud, a lot of hay that they were trying to use to sop up the moisture, and a lot of muddy people, and it was chaotic, really tough, and everybody had a smile on their face. And so, what could be better?
I think we've talked enough. Would you play some music for us?
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. I'm now going to hand over to John and Shannon Tyler. You going to play some songs?
Yep.
Wonderful. Let's go.
Dancing 1, 2, 1. This is my son Shane. And this is my son Tyler. Both regular members in my band, of course. We've been doing it that way for several years now. I'm the luckiest dad in the whole world. I really am. Switch. Not there you go. If this was actually my own guitar, I'd be really embarrassed, but this is a thing that we got for this special occasion. My guitars are all in Spain right now, so. All right. Well, first of all, I really want to, this is a song I dedicate to you because you've been singing my songs all these years. Thank you for that. I am most humbly grateful for that. Well, some of you that have followed me a while know that I really mean that. I'm really sincere about that. I never realized it would happen this way and that I would end up so blessed. And you guys have been singing these songs and carrying them in your heart all these years, which is the reason I'm still standing here. in front of you. Thank you. Anyway, this you've been a rainbow in my life, and this song has a rainbow in it. So it just went south. Okay, we'll go on. Someone told me long ago there's a calm before the storm. We left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day. And I'm living now, merely sleeping, worrying about the way things might have been. Big wheels keep on turning, round and keep on burning. Rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. In the life ain't too many, coming out of me down New Orleans. But I never saw good child of the city till I hit the light on that river so sweet. Big wheel that keep on turning, round and keep on burning. Rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. Well, if you come down to the river, well, bet you're gonna find some people who live. You don't have to worry, 'cause you have no money. People on the river happy to give. Big wheels keep on turning, round and keep on going. Rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. Just rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. One more time. Just rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. God bless y'all. Thanks for coming. Love you very much. Thank y'all. Amen.
John Fogerty, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming along. That was kind of special, right? Thank you so much. Legacy is coming out in August. Hopefully you're going to get a chance to see John live soon. We really appreciate you coming. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful evening.